Over the course of nearly 8 decades, the Army of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, aka the Korean People's Army, has poured enormous effort into building one of the largest arsenals on the planet. But pulverizing an enemy with endless barrages of artillery and rockets is only part of a battle. Until someone invents truly practical battle droids, victory will always rest on the shoulders of the infantry, poor beggars that they are, tasked with seizing and holding ground from the enemy. Prior to the 1960s, the KPA relied almost entirely on imported vehicles supplied by their greatest ally, the Chinese Communist Party. But while the CCP's cast-offs sufficed for a short while, the Kim dynasty's obsession with self-sufficiency meant these were slowly replaced by licensed copies and derivatives churned out by North Korea's domestic military industry. This brings us to the subject of today's video, the rarely seen Model 2010 8x8 armored personnel carrier, a machine that appears to be a Frankenstein's monster of design elements spanning more than 50 years of armored vehicle development. Before we dive deeper into this wheeled coffin from the better Korea, we want to take a moment to tell you about the latest issue of Tank Encyclopedia magazine. We honestly can't believe we've made it all the way to issue 11, and it might just be one of our best yet. So what's inside of issue 11? Let's take a look. First, we explore the history of a rare and experimental Norwegian armored vehicle, the Panzeret Citroën Congress K1. This fascinating and little-known story is expertly told by our own Leander Yabsi. Next, we move to the United States with an in-depth article by Joshua Allen on the 155mm gun motor carriage M12. Learn how a World War I French cannon mounted on the chassis of the M3 medium tank became famous as the door knocker of the Siegfried line. After that, we shift to South America with an experimental Cold War-era vehicle from Brazil, the XM3B1 mortar carrier, covered by Darren Hayes. This article includes extensive photographs taken during Darren's recent trip to Brazil, where he was able to examine the vehicle up close, take measurements, and provide a rare first-hand account you won't find anywhere else. Finally, we take a detailed look at the Slovenian M84 tank and its variants, along with the origins and current state of Slovenia's armored forces. This excellent article by Atanasie Simic explains how Slovenia obtained its tanks in the first place and how it tried keeping these aging tanks relevant on the digital battlefield. If you want to read these articles and more, you can buy your own digital copy of the Tank Encyclopedia magazine issue number 11 by following the link in the description. At only $5.99, it would be hard to find a better deal. And now, back to the video. Before we begin, a brief disclaimer. North Korea is one of the most secretive countries on Earth. More is known about the inside of the Cheyenne Mountain Complex than the average KPA barracks. All our understanding of this elusive vehicle is based on observations made during various KPA activities and parades. Though many of the specifications of the M2010 8x8 are undoubtedly similar to those of the various original models it is based upon, it is not entirely beyond the realm of possibility that major upgrades have taken place under the hood. With that out of the way, the Model 2010 is an 8-wheeled amphibious APC, 7.65 meters long or 25 feet, 2.9 meters wide or 9.5 feet, and 2.6 meters tall or 8.5 feet, and is visually very similar to the Soviet BTR-80. More specifically, it appears to be based on the BTR-80A, a variant produced in 1994. The various sightings of the vehicle over the years indicate it has gone through many minor changes during its service life, with early models sporting an amalgamation of parts similar or identical to those of the BTR-60PB, BTR-80A, 323 APC, and PT-76B light amphibious tank. The vehicle first appeared during a parade celebrating the 65th anniversary of the Workers' Party of Korea, which took place in 2010. This is where the designation M2010 originally comes from, as the U.S. Department of Defense assigns North Korean code names based on the year the vehicle was first sighted in. After this parade, the M2010 disappeared from public view until 2015, where it again appeared at the funeral of Marshal of the Korean People's Army Ri Ul-sol. In a nation where the average life expectancy trails 10 years behind its southern neighbor, 73 versus 83, Ri Ul-sol lived to the remarkable age of 94. His military career stretched back to the 1930s, and he was even known to have been a godfather figure to the young Kim Jong-il. Given his stature, it's unsurprising that the grand funeral held in his honor featured an M2010, which took pride of place as the coffin bearer of the late Marshal. Despite its lack of publicity, enough pictures of the M2010 exist to give us a good idea of how the design differs from the standard BTR-80A. The most striking of these differences can be found in the turret, which is a modified variant of the turret found on the older 323 APC, also in KPA service. Unlike the remote turret on the BTR-80A, the M2010's turret is manually crewed and features a prominent box and fan assembly that is probably a fume extractor and housing for a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear protection system. Additional equipment includes a night visor on the front of the turret hatch, a hydroscope, and an unknown night vision device. By 2013, several vehicles were spotted with an additional bracket welded onto the turret box, designed to mount man-pads, man-portable air defense systems. This became something of a trademark modification for KPA vehicles in the 2010s, as North Korean planners appeared determined to compensate for their lack of viable combat aircraft by strapping surface-to-air missiles onto virtually anything that moved, whether it made tactical sense or not. Curiously, the launcher cannot be operated from inside the vehicle. In a real combat situation, one can only assume that the infantry commander would pop open a hatch and send out the least liked member of the squad to man the exposed missile launcher. This is not to claim that being inside the M2010 is any guarantee of survival though, as the armor is unlikely to be noticeably superior to that of the BTR-80A it derives from. Protection is afforded to the crew by laminated steel plates up to 15mm or 0.59 inches thick. The thickest parts of the armor can reliably deflect 12.7mm heavy machine gun fire, but only at distances beyond 100 meters or 328 feet. Anywhere else is only rated against rifle caliber munitions like 7.62 or 5.56mm. The vehicle can at least disengage from unfavorable situations under the cover of a smokescreen, as 6 launchers are attached on the turret, with 3 on each side for maximum coverage. Fortunately, the M2010 is well equipped to strike back at any attackers, as the turret mounts dual 14.5 by 115mm heavy machine guns derived from the Soviet KPVT. With a maximum range of 3,000 meters and a fire rate of 600 rounds per minute, these weapons can shred most opposition and even pose a substantial threat to other armored vehicles, thanks to armor-piercing rounds capable of penetrating 30mm or 1.1-inch plates angled at 90 degrees from up to 500 meters away. Mounted to the right of the main guns is a single coaxial 7.62mm machine gun, which is the vehicular version of the Type 82, an LMG derived from the Soviet PKMT, which is itself a derivation of the PKM. This version of the Type 82 has a fire rate of only 500 rounds per minute, compared to the 700 of the infantry version, and features a heavier barrel to prevent overheating. In other words, it is optimized for long bursts of suppressive fire, likely as the vehicle advances over open terrain in hostile territory. The exact model of the man-pads on the back of the turret is unknown, but theorized to be an indigenous HT-16PGJ, derived from the Soviet 9K310 Igla-1E. Assuming identical characteristics to the Soviet model, the IR-guided missile is capable of hitting aerial targets up to a maximum range of 5 kilometers or 3.1 miles, a maximum altitude of 2.5 kilometers or 1.5 miles, and a maximum speed of 1.9 Mach, which is 2,350 kilometers per hour. In a close-quarters firefight, the 8 men in the troop transport compartment can contribute to the battle from inside the relative safety of the vehicle. This is enabled by the presence of 3 gun ports on each side of the compartment, which the crew can use to unload small arms fire on anyone foolish enough to challenge the might of the Kim dynasty. One can mark the evolution of the M2010 by the design of these ports, with the original models featuring direct copies of the type found on the BTR-60PB, with an armored cover that can be rotated upwards from the inside. On the intermediate production models, these 6 pistol ports were replaced by more complex ones, rounded and no longer drop-shaped, similar in shape to those mounted on the BTR-80. These are more practical and placed in angled recesses toward the frontal arch and equipped with a watertight closing system, safer than the previous one when the vehicle is involved in amphibious operations. The fact that these new loopholes bear much resemblance to those on the BTR-80A implies, but does not confirm, that the original M2010s were a mishmash of parts from many different BTR models, either equipped from foreign markets or produced domestically by multiple factories, each spitting out components for whatever vehicle they happen to have the tooling and schematics for. As time has gone by, this manufacturing process has been refined and streamlined, resulting in newer vehicles having noticeably better finishes. As hinted before, the M2010 is capable of amphibious operations, a feature it inherits from design elements imported from the PT-76B light amphibious tank, which military analysts have supposed includes the engine. This would make it a licensed variant of the Soviet KAMAZ 7403 V6B 6-cylinder 4-stroke inline water-cooled diesel engine, which delivers a maximum power of 260 horsepower at 2400 RPM. The engine gives the M2010 an estimated top speed of an impressive 80 km or 49.7 miles per hour, which combined with its 8 road wheels gives it good mobility off-road. The influence of the PT-76B can be seen in many places, such as the presence of a water jet mounted at the bottom of the rear plate. Water is expelled through holes in the rear sides of the fenders on the fourth wheel axle, which are covered by grills to afford better mobility during amphibious operations. When plowing the waves, the M2010 probably reaches speeds of about 8 to 10 km per hour, or 4.9 to 6.2 miles per hour. Given the modularity of the BTR series, it's no surprise that many variants of the M2010 have been spotted over the years. The most common is the M2010-2, which shows a modified engine bay and exhaust system and likely has internal improvements not easily seen from the outside. There is also the M2010 6x6, which deletes the infantry compartment and one set of road wheels to create a dedicated reconnaissance vehicle. This variant later evolved into a unique vehicle designated the M2018, which replaced the whole turret assembly with a massive anti-tank guided missile system derived from the Chinese AFT-10. This unnamed ATGM array carries 8 missiles, and analysts have concluded the technology behind the system is advanced enough to enable non-line-of-sight engagements. If true, this is a major step forward for the KPA's anti-armor capabilities. Showcasing further flexibility of the BTR chassis are the M2020 twins, aka the M2020 ATGM carrier and the M2020 mobile gun system, or MGS. While it cannot be conclusively proven these are based on the M2010, it is extremely unlikely the resource-starved KPA would waste time creating a whole new 8x8 chassis when a perfectly good one already exists in their arsenal. The M2020 twins are obvious attempts to mimic the American Stryker, with the ATGM carrier resembling the Stryker ICV and the MGS resembling the Stryker-derived M1128 MGS. Armament for the two vehicles consists of 5 missiles for the ATGM carrier and a 122mm cannon for the MGS. The latter is mounted in a remote turret with an automatic loader and is probably a licensed copy of the Soviet D-30 auto-loading cannon. Nothing else is known about these odd vehicles, and the possibility remains that they are pure showpieces designed for propaganda purposes instead of mass production. It is unknown how many M2010s exist in Korean service, but if the numbers painted on the turrets and hulls are progressive, over 800 8x8 and 6x6 vehicles might exist. Given how many variations already exist, it is reasonable to state that the M2010 either has the potential to be, or has already become, a workhorse for the KPA, fulfilling many different roles thanks to its simplicity and modularity. It is also a significant step forward along the Kim Dynasty's road to full self-sufficiency, being one of the first armored vehicles that the DPRK can produce entirely on its own, without the need for parts imported from foreign markets such as China or Russia. It is safe to say that in any conflict, the M2010 will be featured heavily on the front lines, possibly even more so than older and more common vehicles like the 323 APC. This concludes our look at the M2010 8x8 and its variants. We now turn the conversation over to you, our faithful viewers. Do you think the M2010 is the next North Korean workhorse? Do you expect the KPA to make any significant improvements to the design over the next few years? Are there any more variants you think will pop up during the next few North Korean propaganda showcases? Leave us your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the full article of the M2020 on the Tank Encyclopedia website either. And always remember that your generous donations on Patreon are what let us produce content like this in the first place. We want to especially thank our medium and heavy tank Patreon supporters, Dave Shuford, Sopwith21, Dan Fitzpatrick, Owen M., and R. Rob. Until next time, keep us in your sights.